Hello, this is Copyright Basics by Leo Zizzo.
And Kai Sahin. This presentation is going to be on what copyright is, how it covers works, and basically all of its aspects. So what is a work? A work is anything that is protected by copyright, or it can be protected by copyright. And in order to qualify, that work must be original, it must be in tangible form, so either, listening or seeing, and it must display creativity. So in the context of this class, we're mainly going to be talking about music and songs, sound recordings, which are two different things, which I'll get into. So when you think of music, you may think of just songs like, whatever, but there's more to it than that. A copyright can cover a song, which is the words and the melody, but it also can cover a sound recording, which is different. So if I were to take a guitar and write a song, play some chords and sing over them, that would be a song. But if I were then to record it on, say, my phone, for example, that is a sound recording. And those are two different things. And the reason is another artist can take my song that I wrote and record it in another uh, version. It's still my song, but it's a different recording. So that is why they are different. It's very important to understand that those are different and they both are covered by copyright, but they're not the same thing. Next, we're going to talk about licenses and rights of an owner of copyright and how they affect it.
So the license of copyright is controlled by the owner, who might not necessarily be the writer. It could be the publishing company or the record label or whoever it is that owns it. The owner is entitled to five basic rights that they exclusively control. Uh, these are the right to reproduce, the right to make derivative works, the right to distribute publicly, the right to perform publicly, and the right to display publicly. To explain these a little bit, the right to display publicly pertains to either displaying the song lyrics or the album artwork. Reproducing and distributing pertain to the sound recording, and often cases like this can involve people who have downloaded and file shared different songs that they've downloaded without actually paying for, so piracy. Um, Derivative works relate to plagiarizing ideas or part from a song. Like Kai said, this could include the melody or the lyrics from a song. And then lastly, performing could pertain to both the song and the sound recording. For example, a Spotify play could be considered a performance of both the sound recording and the song.
All right, so we know a little bit about copyright now, and now we're going to talk about term length, which is basically how long that copyright lasts. So there are different rules because there are different laws depending on when the work was first created. So, for example, the Mickey Mouse animation that was created probably in the 20s has just recently fallen into the public domain, and that is because the copyright for it ran out because the term length ran out. And here on the slide, you can see it says pre-1978 works, which is what that is. They last for 95 years. However, post-1978, there was a law passed then that changed the basically the rule of how long a copyright lasts. Now, and this lasts up to modern day. So now it's the author's life plus 70 years. So the author of the work, whatever that is, the writer of a song, the sculptor of a sculpture, their life plus 70 years. However, if there is multiple authors of a work, which is very common in the modern day, especially in music, because there's so many writers of a song, it is the last surviving author plus 70 years. So if one author outlives the other, whoever lives the longest is whose life is put into consideration when you add the 70 years on. There's actually one caveat that I want to talk about in this law, and that is termination rights. It's not really relating to the term length, but it is about ownership, and that is post 78, which is passed in the same law as the term length one. It's about ownership. So if you hand over your ownership, um, 35 years after, you are able to reclaim it. And that is good if you want to, have your life into consideration for the copyright, if you want to take it back and put it back into your ownership. So it's kind of related, and you know, it's good to know, especially if you are into this sort of like business and you want to make sure it's your life is the one who's being considered for the law. Next, we're going to cover some legal cases about these topics and what we've kind of covered already. We're going to kind of validate them with some examples, also some new stuff, and kind of put it into better context what we've been talking about.
So our first case is the Campbell versus Cuff Rose music case. This is a case that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. It involved the original song Roy Orbison's "Oh Pretty Woman" and Two Live Crew's "Pretty Woman," which originally Two Live Crew had actually asked a Cuff Rose Music if they could use the song, and a Cuff denied them and said that it was too profane and they didn't want that version out there. Two Live Crew went ahead with it anyway and put it out on their album, and were shortly after sued. Once it got to the U.S. Supreme Court, Two Live Crew claimed that their song was a parody and that they only used a small portion of the original song, and the rest of their song was transformative in nature. Now, this actually was ruled a fair use of the song, and it was not a copyright infringement. And fair use basically says that you're allowed to make commentary, make a parody, or use for limited educational use. And this was a groundbreaking case in the fair use law. So now I'll play you just the intro of each song. That was the Two Live Crew version. And like I said, later in the song, they do take a lot more creative liberty and do make a transformative version and a parody version of the song. But we'll now hear the intro, which sounds very similar in this version.
Pretty woman walking down the street, pretty woman, the kind I like to meet, pretty woman. I don't believe.
And even in the intro there, it's important to realize that the lyrics in the Two Live Crew case, their version, their lyrics did change. So that's an example of making a transformative parody use and a fair use and not a copyright infringement. Now on to our next case.
All right, so this case is Joe Satriani versus Coldplay. Satriani's song "If I Could Fly" and Coldplay's song "Viva la Vida." This one, the two songs share a very similar melody within them, and that is what this case is about. It's about the copyright of the melody, because Joe Satriani's song was put out first, and Coldplay were sued because they were claimed to have copied the melody. Now, the important thing about this case is it a derivative work or is it a coincidence? Because intent is a huge part of these type of lawsuits. And if you can prove that if there was intent to copyright or to copy the song, then that's a big thing. But if there's no intent, then you can't really prove anything. Now, in this case, Coldplay stated that they had never heard Satriani's song, and therefore they would have had no idea. So they claim it was simply a coincidence that these two songs sound similar. And in the end, the case was just that. It was dropped because it was ruled as a coincidence. So it was settled. It was even. There was nothing that really came out of it. I'm gonna play the two songs and the melody so you can kind of hear what we're talking about. This is the Satriani song, If I Could Fly. So there's that melody. It's very clear, and this is the Coldplay song.
I used to rule the world, seas would rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone, sweep the streets I used to own.
So yeah, very similar melodies. There is a bit of differentiation, but you can't really argue. It's very similar.
And that was Copyright Basics, and with a few explanations of cases that give a better context of Copyright Basics. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.